Hey, what's up, YouTube? In this video, I'm going to be continuing my preview of the upcoming 2018 NFL Draft, covering the wide receivers for this video. Just getting right into it, going into my top five, just counting down here. At number five, I have DJ Chark, wide receiver out of LSU as my number five wide receiver. Now, just looking at the strengths of this guy, DJ Chark has exceptional size and athleticism for the position. He ran a 4.34 40-yard dash at the combine, which is just ridiculous, especially when you consider the fact that he's 6'3" and 200 pounds. So very good height, very good speed for the position. I mean, those are two traits that are very elite in terms of translating to the NFL level. And he also has a 40-inch vertical. So he's a guy that can be a threat in terms of being a jump ball guy at the next level as well. When you look at DJ Chark, he has very exceptional big play ability. During the course of his career at LSU, he had 10 touchdowns on a total of 86 catches. So when he got the ball, he was usually scoring it more than likely. That's a pretty high percentage of touchdowns per catch. And then in terms of big play ability, 36% of his catches went for more than 25 yards. So this guy's a big play threat at any single time he gets the ball, whether it's going deep in a vertical situation or getting the ball short and using his speed to create something out of nothing. DJ Chark has shown the ability to be a big play threat at the NFL level. And now, when we talk about DJ Chark, he's very raw overall as a wide receiver. But one thing I like about him is that he's got very good acceleration going into his routes. And he's not afraid of the physicality. He's willing to catch the ball over the middle and take the hit. He's also willing to be a blocker on the outside, kind of setting the edge for running backs on the outside when they do outside runs to his way. He's very willing to, throw his weight around and be a contributor in that aspect of the game, which I really respect for a wide receiver. And looking at his speed, he can also contribute as a returner at the next level as well. When he gets the ball in the open field, he's absolutely electric. So if coaches can scheme ways to just get him open in space and just give him the ball in space, he can be very effective at the next level while he's kind of refining the rest of his game. Now, with that said, DJ Chark does have a lot of weaknesses when I look at his game. And I mentioned it before, he's very raw for the position. He needs to work on his route running pretty much as a whole in its entirety. He does not have a full developed route tree whatsoever. He wasn't really asked to do much at LSU in terms of a developed route tree. And really, he relies almost entirely on his size and athleticism to get open and to catch the ball. And he's not going to be able to get away with that at the NFL, not at all. Cornerbacks and other defensive backs will be able to match up with him athletically at the NFL level. So he has to find a way to kind of refine his game as a route runner in order to gain separation and get open. He doesn't really respond well to press coverage, and he's got really poor upper body strength as a result. So if he needs to really get into the weight room, work on upper body strength, work on his hand usage to be able to get off the line of scrimmage against press coverage and not let cornerbacks really determine his route running at the line of scrimmage. And then his ball skills do have a lot to be desired. I think he can be better as a jump ball player. For a guy who's 6'3" and has that type of leaping ability, he should be pretty much a very dominant player in terms of being a jump ball guy. And I just never really saw that. He doesn't really make a lot of contested catches, really. Nothing really spectacular when I watch him. He really doesn't have the biggest catch radius that you'd want from a guy of his size and athleticism. So that's something that really needs to be monitored, and whether that's kind of developing as he progresses in the NFL. Now, for my pro comparison, I compare him very similarly to Chris Conley of the Kansas City Chiefs. Both guys have very good size and speed traits, but were very raw coming out of college. And Chris Conley, we've seen flashes of him becoming a true number one or number two wide receiver. But the lack of route running has been pretty alarming for Chris Conley and why he hasn't had that much success in the NFL, even though he's played in a great offensive system under Andy Reid in that offense in Kansas City. Where I see DJ Chark going is in the second round of the NFL draft. I think that'd be a good spot for him because he's got such high upside because of his size, his length, his athleticism, that I think a team willing to take a chance on a wide receiver to develop, they can take a chance on him maybe developing for a few years while he's kind of rounding out his route tree a little bit. So bottom line, DJ Chark is an incredibly gifted athlete who is still raw at the wide receiver position right now. He's a fast riser after a very impressive combine. DJ Chark has the ideal height and speed traits that you're looking for a number one or number two wide receiver on the outside. I think a team drafting Chark must understand, though, how to scheme ways to get him open, as he is not developed as a route runner and may take some time to develop overall. However, Chark's potential as a game-breaking talent cannot be understated, so I think round 2 would be a pretty good spot for him. At number 4, I have Christian Kirk coming out of Texas A&M. Looking at his strengths here, he's got very good initial quickness and shiftiness for the position. He's got a very good, well-built, muscular frame from top to bottom. He's not going to get injured, I feel like, in the NFL, and guys seem to bounce off of him in the open field. When I look at Kirk, he's a very polished enough of a route runner. He can beat press coverage because he's able to handle the physicality of the initial jab at the line of scrimmage. And he's also very quick in and out of his breaks when he's running his routes. Primarily, I think he's most effective in the slot because he does struggle a bit to gain separations on the outside, but I'll get to that in a little bit in a minute when I talk about his weaknesses. When I look at Christian Kirk, he's got very good, strong hands for the most part, and what I really like about him the most is that he's an extremely competitive player overall, and you can see that when he gets the ball in his hands. He is at his best when he has the ball in his hands in space. He uses his muscular frame to his advantage to fight for extra yards against really undersized defensive backs. He's very shifty after the catch. A lot of guys are going to struggle to tackle him in the open field, and this also leads to him having very good potential as a return man. I saw him on tape have a few very explosive plays as a returner. I think they could translate to the NFL very well. Now, with that said, there are some weaknesses in his game, and there are a few big flaws for me when you talk about picking him high as a wide receiver. For one, he's not the ideal outfield perimeter wide receiver that you're looking for in the first or second round. He's got a very below average catch radius, and you got to pretty much show the ball right on the money in order for him to be able to come down and catch it. He does not separate well due to the lack of elite explosiveness as an outside receiver. And while he is a pretty good athlete overall, he has more quickness rather than good straight line speed. So he's really not that much of a good deep threat. He's more of a guy that you can put in the slot. He can use his quickness to get initial separation, and with his strong hands, you can give him the ball, hopefully in space, and he can create some plays after that. But with that said, he's a guy that needs to be schemed, I feel like, to get open at the next level more so than just winning and relying on him to win one-on-one matchups on the outside or even in the slot, for example. As a pro comparison, I think he compares very similarly to a Jarvis Landry. Obviously, I think he's a better all-around athlete than Jarvis Landry, but they have a similar playing style in that both are particularly slot wide receivers who don't really bring you much of an ability to stretch the field vertically, but you can get them the ball underneath and they can make some plays with their legs, with the ball in their hands. I think he's a guy that's going to go in the second round in the upcoming draft. And just bottom line, Christian Kirk, he's an excellent athlete with the ball in his hands. That will be very dangerous on short routes where he can be a possession receiver in space to get yards after the catch. Due to a lack of explosiveness and ability to separate, Kirk will most likely be limited to a slot receiver in the NFL. So I wouldn't really necessarily call him a true number one wide receiver prospect going into the NFL draft. Still, Kirk's competitiveness with the ball in his hands should make him a productive professional as he transitions to the NFL. So moving on at number 3, I have DJ Moore, wide receiver out of Maryland. Some of the things I like about DJ Moore, he's got a very good combination of size and athleticism. He's 6 feet, 210 pounds, ran a 4.4 40, 39.5-inch vertical, and his 4-second 20-yard shuttle was pretty impressive as well. He's got very good initial quickness in the short area. And like I said, very good short area quickness. He's shown some ability to challenge defensive backs going vertically, and he's got an above-average catch radius, but it's not really something that's exceptional overall. But what I really like about him is that he's very good after the catch, very similar to Christian Kirk, and that he's extremely competitive, and he's very elusive in the open field. Very rarely did I see the first a tackler bring him to the ground. He's just very slippery in the open field. Now, in terms of weaknesses, he's not the most polished route runner in the world. Doesn't always explode into his breaks, which can be a problem at the NFL. And he needs to challenge defensive backs going vertically a lot more. He's shown some ability to do that, just not consistently enough. In college, he relied on very simple routes to get open. These include slants, screens, Those are really the main parts of his production. So he's going to have to expand his route tree going into the NFL. And really, his hands are just average at best. I saw a lot of drops that really should have been catches at the NFL level. He's not really great at winning 50-50 jump balls either. Anything contested, he really struggled to catch at the college level. And I think similar to Christian Kirk, he may need to slide inside and be a slot receiver primarily at the next level. My comparison for him is Golden Tate of the Detroit Lions. I think he'll be drafted somewhere between the late first round to mid-second round as a prospect. Bottom line for me, DJ Moore, he's very similar to Christian Kirk in that both are very good athletes with the ball in their hands, and they will compete to gain extra yards when they get the ball short. However, Moore lacks the route running polish needed for a starting wide receiver and may need time to develop overall because of that. Moore may purely be more of a slot receiver in the NFL due to his short area quickness, but he does have the measurables to work on the outside if he can work on his route running and getting separation at the next level. So moving on for me, my number 2 wide receiver in this class, Calvin Ridley out of Alabama. This might surprise a lot of you. He's been really the consensus number 1 wide receiver for most people in this draft, but I'll lay a few reasons on you why that isn't the case. But let's start with his strengths first. First of all, Calvin Ridley is by far the best route runner in the entire draft. He effortlessly gets in and out of his breaks. He's got very good, consistent speed throughout his routes. He consistently gains immense separation to get away from cornerbacks, and he can run the entire route tree pretty easily. There isn't a single route out there that he can't run and run effectively. Just a fantastic route runner overall. It's very beautiful to watch him run his routes. With that combination, he also has a great combination of speed to go along with that route running ability, which makes him a dynamic deep threat to be able to take the top off of the defense. So defenses must be aware of him at all times because he's capable of getting behind the cornerback and the safety and getting a deep pass from his quarterback at any given time. He's got excellent speed in the open field, and he can take short passes to the house at any given time if he gets the ball in space. Overall, he's got a pretty good catch radius. He can jump up and make some tough catches. He can dive and make some tough catches overall. And he does a really good job of adjusting to his quarterback and getting open in scramble drill situations where kind of the play kind of goes off script and the quarterback's on the move and he kind of has to make a move to get open outside of his already established route. And he's also got very good, solid, natural hands. Nothing, really exceptional as far as his hands go, but they're very solid overall. He does a pretty good job of making sure he's catching it with his hands rather than letting the ball come to his body for the most part. Now, in terms of weaknesses, this is where things get a little dicey for me for Calvin Ridley. He's got a very slender frame, and he will need to add strength at the next level. He's 6 foot, 189 pounds. But with that frame, I'm concerned that he will not be able to add the necessary amount of muscle needed to stay healthy at the next level. So I question whether he's going to be able to stay durable transitioning to the NFL. He does struggle against press coverage consistently because of a lack of strength and because of a lack of technique in terms of his hand usage. And, one of the things I really don't like about him is he's very timid catching the ball in traffic. He doesn't like going over the middle very much. And it just leads to a lot of drops because he'll often prepare to take the hit rather than focusing on catching the ball first. He's very concerned about making sure to protect himself first rather than catch the ball. And he does have solid hands overall, but there will be the occasional concentration drop. Over the course of his career, he had 20 drops at Alabama, so it definitely could be an issue going to the next level. And I mentioned his slender frame before. It does have a bit of a negative downside when he catches the ball because usually the first contact will bring him down when he gets tackled. He's not a guy that's going to necessarily power through defenders or fight for extra yards. Usually once you get a hand on him, he's going to go down to the ground. My pro comparison for Calvin Ridley going to the NFL is Stephon Diggs of the Minnesota Vikings. He's a guy that can play both in the outside and in the slot. He's a guy that I think will go in the middle of the first round. So bottom line for me with Calvin Ridley, don't let the stats fool you. Ridley is a very solid receiving prospect in this draft class. I mean, he's about as good as they come for most draft years. His route running ability is impeccable. I need to stress that enough, and will allow him to get consistently open at the NFL level. Ridley also has that deep vertical speed to create big plays, both when he goes vertical and with the ball in his hands, getting the ball short. Unfortunately, I think Ridley's frame will keep him from consistently dominating games as a true number one wide receiver, and his potential might be limited to be more of an exceptional number two wide receiver in the NFL. Nonetheless, Ridley is the safest wide receiver prospect in this class, and there is a reason he will most likely be the first wide receiver off the board when we get to the draft in about a week. Now, I'm going to surprise a lot of you here with this pick. Most of you expected Calvin Ridley to be the number one wide receiver, but for me, it's got to be Anthony Miller, wide receiver out of Memphis. To me, it is absolutely insane that this guy has gotten criminally underrated throughout the entire draft process. Whenever I watch this guy on film, I just think that this guy's just going to be a beast at the NFL level. Let me go over his strengths first off. He's not a perfect prospect overall, but there's a lot to like when I watch Anthony Miller out of Memphis. First of all, he is an excellent route runner. He just has exceptional short area quickness. He's got really quick feet, and he will absolutely embarrass defenders if you're not careful. His route running can be absolutely sick at times, and while he doesn't have every single route in the route tree, he can run most of them as of now, and I think he has the ability to further expand that route tree as he goes to the NFL. His route running can be absolutely ridiculous at times. He is insanely good with his feet and his short area quickness. As a receiver, he's got above average hands, makes a lot of tough catches, and even though he's a bit undersized, he can play both in the slot and outside. He showed consistent ability to beat press coverage at the college level that I think translates to the NFL as well. And the one thing I really like about this kid, he's got an immense chip on his shoulder, and he's an extremely competitive and tough competitor. Despite his small stature, you will routinely see him win 50-50 jump balls over much bigger defensive backs. There will be so many instances where his quarterback will just throw it up in double coverage, and somehow this little 5'10" kid will be jumping up and catching it over those 6-foot cornerbacks. It's a joy to watch him do that. He's not afraid to go over the middle and catch the ball in traffic. He will pull down difficult catches with defenders draped all over him. He fights for extra yards after the catch. He will work back to his quarterback in scramble drill situations. Point blank, he is just a natural receiver. He gets how to play the position and play the position right. And I think that's going to translate very well to the NFL level. Despite the lack of elite speed, he consistently beats defenders deep for big plays. He's just got every single thing that you want in a wide receiver. He beats you short, he beats you intermediate, and he beats you deep. And he was immensely productive over the course of his entire collegiate career. Now, with that said, he's not a perfect prospect whatsoever. He does have quite a few weaknesses to his game. And first off, it comes down to his size. He's 5'11", 190 pounds. And while he's well-proportioned overall in terms of his frame, I think that could lead to some injuries in the NFL as he is a smaller player. Also, when you look at his numbers, he played in a spread system at Memphis, so some of his numbers are boosted by the fact that he played in a spread system. A lot of easy dump-off screen passes on first and second down that would give him some, about 3-4 easy catches a game where they're really uncontested. And when you watch him play, he doesn't have blazing speed. He's a bit of a short stepper in his route where he doesn't really have long strides that you maybe want from your wide receiver. And in the NFL, that might lead to less separation because cornerbacks will be able to stay more draped on over him. And occasionally he'll have the concentration drop that a lot of these wide receivers have nowadays. But with that said, with those weaknesses pointed out, I don't think there's any reason that Anthony Miller is not going to be a productive NFL wide receiver. When I watch him play, he reminds me almost of a poor man's version of an Antonio Brown. I think this kid has probable potential to be a stud in this league, but unfortunately, a lot of teams are not going to see him as their first-round prospect. I think he's a guy that's going to be a second- and third-round pick in the upcoming NFL draft. And, boy, the team that gets him in the second or third round is going to get a steal, in my opinion. So bottom line, I realize I am in the minority here, but I'm just going to come out and flat out say it, go out on a limb here and say that Anthony Miller will be the best wide receiver in this draft class. His combination of route running expertise, catching ability, and overall competitiveness is the best combination in this entire draft at the wide receiver position. Due to a lack of size and elite athleticism, scouts are going to overlook Miller, and he will drop to day 2 when it comes to the draft. However, I'm willing to put my reputation and money on the line here when I say that Anthony Miller will be the most productive receiver to come out of this draft class when it's all said and done. I think this kid is special. Now, transitioning away from that, I'm going to talk about a few sleepers in this draft. There are a few guys I think that can be had on day 2 and 3 in this draft that can be productive wide receivers, even though it's a little bit of a weaker receiving class overall. The first guy I'm going to go with is Dante Pettis out of Washington. The first thing you really notice with Dante Pettis is his ability as a return man. 9 career return touchdowns in his entire career at Washington, which is just insane. But when I watched him on film, he is more than just a return specialist. He showed improvement every single year to be a potential effective receiver on both the outside and in the slot. He does have the ability to be a starting wide receiver in this league. He's an exceptional athlete that is very dangerous with the ball in space. So you can get him the ball on short routes and on screens and slants, and he can be very effective. He runs the full route tree as well. He's a very solid route runner. Maybe not exceptional, but he does a pretty good job of getting open and getting separation. I think he'll be a guy that will fall to the 3rd or 4th round, and if any team can get him in that 3rd or 4th round area, I think they'll be getting a steal and a very good football player. Another guy at wide receiver that can be a sleeper is Michael Gallup out of Colorado State. He's got very good size and athleticism for the position overall, and he was very productive over the past 2 seasons, showing a lot of improvement in his route running ability particularly. I think he's got the potential to be a solid number 2 wide receiver in the NFL. He doesn't have the upside to be a number 1 per se, but I think he's a guy who might be available in the 3rd round. He can be a very good value pick for a team looking to add some depth to their wide receiving core. And finally, another sleeper to kind of put out there is Antonio Callaway out of Florida. This guy is by far a first-round talent when you look at him from an athletic standpoint. He's got exceptional athleticism, great speed in the open field. Unfortunately, he's had a lot of off-field issues, and that will most likely make him be an undrafted player when it comes down to it. I could see some teams maybe take a chance on him in the 6th or 7th round, but I think it's most likely that he goes undrafted because he got suspended this past season. He's had lots of issues off the field, and I just don't know if there's many teams that are just willing to take that risk in terms of using up a draft pick on him. But I think a team that is willing to take a chance on his character concerns could get an absolute steal because the ability is through the roof with this kid. He's got exceptional athleticism for the position. Now, transitioning from sleepers to maybe some overrated prospects that I find in this draft, I'm going to start off with Clemson wide receiver Deon Cain. This guy comes from the wide receiver factory that is Clemson. Like I mentioned, we've seen guys like Sammy Watkins, Mike Williams this past season. Just to name a few, Clemson has produced a lot of hyped wide receivers that have been picked high in the 1st round over the past few seasons. But unfortunately, when I watched him play, he never really lived up to the hype. The stat line doesn't lie either. They've had productive spread offenses in the passing game over the past few seasons, and he really hasn't produced overall. I think he's more of the situation where he's a better athlete than he is a receiver, and I question whether he has the competitive drive to be a number 1 or number 2 wide receiver in the league. I think he'll be a guy that will be drafted in the 2nd round, and if that's the case, I think that'll be a gross overdraft. I think he's more of a 3rd or 4th round prospect when I looked at him on tape. And then finally, another guy that I think is overrated is Cortland Sutton out of SMU. He's very intriguing, I'll give you that, due to his size. He's 6'3", 218 pounds. He tested very well at the combine in terms of his speed, running a 4.5 40. But when you watch him on film, that athleticism just doesn't seem to translate to the field whatsoever. He plays very slow. He struggles to get in and out of his routes. He doesn't really gain any separation on his routes overall. And it really comes down to playing slow and not being confident in his route running ability, and which leads to him relying primarily on contested catches, which is not going to work in the NFL. We've seen a lot of receivers where they've struggled to gain open in college. They don't really get open in the NFL as well. He'll be drafted in the late 1st round or early 2nd round, but personally, I would not take a chance on him until the late 2nd or early 3rd round. He does have some intriguing size and speed kind of ability, but he just didn't really put it together at all in college, and I question whether that will translate to the NFL. So those are my thoughts on the upcoming wide receiving draft class for the 2018 NFL Draft. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Who's your top 5 wide receivers? Who do you think I got it right with Anthony Miller? Do you think I grossly underrated some of these players? Do you agree with my overrated prospects? Are there any sleepers out there? Let me know in the comments section below. And, of course, thanks, guys, for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe. And I'll be coming out with more content shortly.